The courtroom froze as Jackson Hayes, a black attorney, revealed damning evidence collected by the corrupt officers he was prosecuting. With threats mounting against his family and a system stacked against him, he stood firm, ready to expose the lies. What happened next will shock you. But let's start at the beginning. The courtroom was alive with murmurs as Jackson Hayes, a distinguished black civil rights attorney, stood at the defense table, adjusting his tie with deliberate composure. In his late 30s, Jackson exuded confidence in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit that accentuated his deep brown skin and sharp features. His eyes, filled with determination, scanned the packed room. For Jackson, this case went far beyond the charges at hand. It was about dismantling the systemic corruption festering within the city's police department. The defendants, Sergeant Frank Dalton and Officer Rick Mullins, were accused of falsifying evidence and coercing confessions, targeting innocent black citizens in their community. The allegations were part of a pattern of abuse that had gone unchecked for years. Jackson had fought tirelessly to bring this case to court, navigating a maze of procedural hurdles and institutional resistance. Now, armed with evidence ironically gathered by the defendants themselves, he prepared to make his stand. Across the aisle, Dalton and Mullins sat stiffly in their uniforms, their faces pale, jaws clenched tight. Their defense attorney, a smug and well-connected litigator, had dismissed the entire case as a political stunt, projecting confidence that bordered on arrogance. Yet, the unease in the officers' expressions betrayed their fears. They knew what Jackson had. Outside the courthouse, the streets were a cacophony of chants and shouts. Protesters held signs aloft with slogans like "Justice for All" and "End Police Corruption." The hum of media cameras and reporters' commentary added to the charged atmosphere. But inside, the tension was palpable, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. When the judge called the session to order, the room fell silent. Jackson rose slowly, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the chamber. His opening statement was clear and powerful, his voice steady, yet rich with conviction. "This case isn't just about these two men," he declared, the weight of his words hanging in the air. "It's about a culture of impunity, a system designed to protect itself at the expense of justice." The courtroom sat in silence, the gravity of his words sinking in. The fight for justice had begun. Over the next week, Jackson Hayes meticulously built his case, leaving no detail overlooked. Each day, the courtroom was gripped by harrowing testimonies from witnesses who had endured the abuses of Sergeant Dalton and Officer Mullins. Angela Reed, a single mother, delivered one of the most emotional accounts. Her voice trembled as she recounted the night she was falsely arrested on fabricated drug charges, leaving her 8-year-old son terrified and alone at home. Tears welled in the eyes of many in the courtroom as Angela described the profound trauma inflicted on her family. The prosecution's momentum surged with a dramatic revelation, a damning video recording from the officer's own dashboard camera. The officers had failed to deactivate the device during one of their illegal operations. The grainy footage, played on a screen for all to see, captured Dalton and Mullins planting a bag of narcotics in the back seat of a young black man's car during what was supposed to be a routine traffic stop. Their mocking laughter and casual remarks about their airtight case filled the silent courtroom, every word cutting like a knife. The defense team, visibly rattled, launched a desperate attempt to undermine the evidence. They argued chain of custody issues and claimed procedural errors in handling the footage. However, Jackson was unrelenting. He anticipated every angle, presenting timestamps, corroborative witness testimonies, and expert technical analysis to authenticate the recording. Piece by piece, he dismantled the defense's claims, ensuring the evidence remained intact. Outside the courtroom, Jackson faced mounting threats. Anonymous letters arrived at his office, warning him to back down, while hateful messages clogged his inbox. Hate mail painted his home as a target. Despite the rising pressure, Jackson remained steadfast, finding solace in his wife, Maya, and their 2 children. Maya, a university professor, and Jackson's emotional anchor, provided unwavering support. Each night, she reminded him of the stakes. "This fight isn't just for us, Jackson. It's for every voice that's been silenced, every family that's been broken." With each passing day, Jackson's resolve grew stronger. This wasn't just a trial. It was a battle for justice, and he intended to win. In the trial's final week, the defense introduced a bombshell witness, Chief of Police Michael Hartman. Known for his charisma and spotless public image, Hartman was a commanding figure in the law enforcement community. Dressed impeccably in his uniform, his calm demeanor and polished rhetoric seemed designed to sway the jury. Taking the stand, Hartman passionately defended Sergeant Dalton and Officer Mullins, describing them as dedicated public servants who had been unfairly targeted by what he called a politically motivated attack on law enforcement. As he spoke, Hartman dismissed the charges as baseless, painting Jackson Hayes as an opportunist bent on undermining the integrity of the police force. The defense leaned heavily on Hartman's reputation, hoping his testimony would be the lifeline the case needed. Jackson, however, remained composed. Rising to cross-examine Hartman, his tone was measured but firm. His questions were precise, chipping away at the chief's carefully crafted narrative. Jackson highlighted inconsistencies in Hartman's account of the department's internal investigations and probed his knowledge of the specific incidents involving Dalton and Mullins. Hartman, visibly uncomfortable under the scrutiny, began to falter. Then, Jackson unveiled the final blow, a series of internal emails between Hartman and the accused officers. The emails, obtained through a whistleblower, revealed Hartman's direct involvement in covering up their misconduct. In one exchange, Hartman instructed the officers to keep it quiet and assured them the department would handle any backlash. The courtroom exploded with murmurs and gasps. Jurors exchanged shocked glances, and Hartman's confident facade crumbled. The defense team scrambled to contain the damage, but the revelation had already sunk deep into the jury's minds. As order was restored, Jackson seized the moment for his closing argument. Stepping forward, his voice steady and resolute, he declared, "This case is about accountability, about proving that no one, no matter their badge or title, is above the law. If we let this corruption go unchecked, we fail, not just as a community, but as a society." His words hung in the air, echoing in the silent courtroom, a powerful reminder of the stakes at hand. For 2 tense days, the jury deliberated while the world outside the courthouse teetered on the edge of chaos. Protesters demanding justice filled the streets, their voices echoing with chants like, "No justice, no peace." Counter-demonstrators gathered as well, waving flags and signs defending law enforcement. The atmosphere crackled with tension as news outlets provided non-stop coverage, debating the potential verdict and its implications. Social media became a battleground, with hashtags like "Justice for All" trending alongside heated arguments. Inside the courthouse, a heavy silence blanketed the packed gallery when the jury finally returned. Faces strained with anticipation as the foreperson stood to deliver the verdict. "We find the defendants guilty on all counts," the foreperson announced, each word striking like a hammer. A collective gasp of relief swept through the room, followed by a ripple of applause from the public seating. Jackson Hayes, ever composed, allowed himself only the faintest smile as he nodded in acknowledgement of the verdict. He knew the battle for justice was far from over. This victory was merely a step toward dismantling the system that had allowed such corruption to fester. The fallout came swiftly. Chief of Police Michael Hartman tendered his resignation within days, his reputation in tatters after the exposure of his complicity. Sergeants Dalton and Mullins faced lengthy prison sentences, their actions condemned as egregious abuses of power. The city, reeling from the scandal, announced an independent review of its entire police department, led by a coalition of community leaders. Jackson played a key role in shaping the investigation, ensuring transparency and accountability. In the weeks that followed, Jackson became a national symbol of hope and resilience. Communities across the country began to challenge systemic injustices, inspired by his victory. At home, Jackson found solace in moments of quiet with Maya and their children. These moments reminded him of what he was fighting for, a world where his children could grow up free from the shadow of injustice. As Jackson looked out at the bustling city, he had begun to change. He knew there was more work ahead. But for the first time in years, he felt hope that real change was within reach.